What's up guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video I will be doing another tier list, this time of the Godzilla movies. If you find yourself enjoying this video, be sure to leave a like, it would really help out a ton. And I wanted to do something different with the tier list other than S, A, B, C, D, and F. Like I've given the tier list names. We've got Godly, which is the best of the best, Great, which is a lot of fun, Good, which is still pretty good, Okay, which is mediocre, Bad, which means it's, pretty bad, and God-awful, which means the worst of the worst. Let me know which Godzilla movie is your favorite in the comments down below if you love Godzilla. And what's your favorite monster out of the Godzilla movies? Let me know of that in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's get on with the tier list. Let's start with the original classic, Godzilla 1954. It will always be a classic, which is why it is going in Godly tier. Because it's just a very powerful movie, in my opinion. It's just... oh my god, when I saw this movie for the first time, I was both crying and hiding behind my bed or chair or whatever was the closest object that I could hide in, because Godzilla in that movie was absolutely terrifying. He was treated like a force of nature, something created by war. And honestly, it's absolutely terrifying, If you've never watched the original Godzilla, I highly recommend it because it's a really good movie. Even if you're not really into monster movies, it's highly recommended that you watch it, because it is a really good movie. Then we've got the American version of the same movie where it was heavily modified with American scenes and stuff like that, and it has Raymond Burr. It wasn't as good as the classic Japanese version, but it was still pretty good. I would have to put it in good, because, it's a pretty solid movie, and it's introducing Western audiences into the monster, Godzilla Raids Again. Now this one's like a direct sequel, and it introduces Godzilla fighting another monster for the first time. The monster is named Anguirus or something, Anguirus? I don't know, he's some type of ankylosaur kaiju of some sort. But yeah, the movie, in my opinion, I'm gonna put it in good. It's not higher because the ending was kind of weird, like trapping Godzilla in the icebergs and whatnot, and it was shot weird, and I don't know, it just didn't really sit well with me. The original King Kong vs. Godzilla would be without a doubt great. It was simple genius bringing two of the most famous monsters in the entire world on the big screen together in the clash of the century. The American monster against the Japanese monster, the East versus the West. It was an amazing movie. It was a lot of fun. That's why it's under great. Up next we have the original Godzilla vs. Mothra. Now, in my opinion, Mothra is one of the weaker monsters. Not just physicality, but in my opinion. And, I don't know, the plot was, kind of all over the place, and you had the two fairies and whatnot, but if you liked Godzilla vs. Mothra, then it'd be good. I still thought it was a good movie. It goes under the good tier, because it's still a solid movie. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Now, this introduced one of my favorite monsters of all time, King Ghidorah. And I'm still terrified of him to this day. A three-headed celestial dragon? That's pretty terrifying. It goes under the great tier because it's a pretty good movie. I mean, there are goofy moments every now and then where, there was this scene where Godzilla was fighting a vulture of some sort, like a tiny vulture or a hawk, and he had trouble fighting it. And the movie was kind of mean-spirited at times, with Godzilla and Rodan laughing at their misfortunes. But yeah, other than that, it was a really good movie. Then you have Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. A lot of fun. Also great. Because it's just a lot of fun. It introduced one of Godzilla's first dances, his victory dance, which I'm pretty sure is a meme by now. If it's not, then I'd be really shocked. And, yeah, that's why it's great. You got, like, the aliens trying to convince Earth that Ghidorah is about to attack the planet, and they send Godzilla along to destroy King Ghidorah. And basically, what they don't know is that Ghidorah was under the aliens' control the entire time, and then Godzilla and Ghidorah were under their control. And like Mothra, and then Mothra's in it, and Rodan's in it, and they, along with Godzilla, team up to fight Ghidorah. A pretty awesome fight. It's 3 against 1. It's not looking good for Ghidorah. Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. Now, I wasn't really a fan of this, probably because of all the James Bond references in it. The music-wise, it sounded like something out of a James Bond movie. It wasn't bad. I would say it's okay, because, I mean, Ebra, I love Ebra's design, but I don't know, it was just, the movie was just okay. Son of Godzilla was a pretty bad movie, because Godzilla was such an ass to his son Manila, or Minya, or whatever you want to call him. I mean, I love the scene at the end where Godzilla's keeping his son warm during the cold months, but the rest of the movie was so mean-spirited. I did not like this movie at all, but yeah, that's just me though. Up next, we have Godzilla Destroy All Monsters. I would say this movie was great. It was supposed to be basically the epic finale, until it wasn't. But this movie was like all the monsters coming together into one movie and teaming up to fight King Ghidorah. And the ending was just way too wild. It was really wild. And Ghidorah, instead of being up against 3 monsters like he was last time, he was up against 7 or 8. Dude, if that's not overkill, then I don't know what is. Ghidorah just got absolutely annihilated. Then we've got Godzilla's Revenge, or All Monsters Attack. I would have to say god-awful. It's one of the worst movies out there. Like, you got this monster called Gabra, who's, like, very mean-spirited towards Minya. And it centers around a little boy who's going through similar problems as Minya. And he gets a dream that Minya is human-sized. And he can talk and everything. And he's telling the kid how Godzilla says that he should learn to fight his own battles. And to an extent, it's true. Because, he's a monster. And what do monsters do? They fight. So yeah, I can see where Godzilla's coming from when he tries to push Minya into fighting. But other than that, it was pretty all over the place. The dream is just, I don't know. The fact that they made it a dream sequence, I don't know. And this was the time where Godzilla was, like, made more for kids. So it was more kid-friendly, where Godzilla was a good guy. Instead of being a bad guy like he was in the original movie. But yeah, that's just me. Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, or Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I would say it was okay. It was more of an environmental film than anything. Like, it was basically their way of telling you not to pollute, or else some weird monster who looks like a cross between Mr. Snuffleupagus and the Blob will be created. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it was just okay. And it also led to one of the funniest scenes where Godzilla, like, curls up into a ball, and he starts, like, using his breath as, like, a propeller so he can fly. I thought that was pretty weird, but pretty funny at the same time. I think even the DVD said something you don't see every day. Godzilla vs. Gigan. Now, Gigan is probably, he didn't really look that good in the original Gigan, but in Final Wars, which I'll get to later, he looked a lot better. Though saying that, it's not a bad movie. I would say it's just good. Because Gigan is actually a really awesome monster. He's got knives for hands and a buzzsaw on his stomach. And it's just, he's just a really cool looking monster in my opinion. And it's basically Godzilla and Anguirus going up against Gigan and Ghidorah. There was a scene that I wasn't really a fan of where Godzilla and Anguirus started talking and whatnot. And I don't know, it was just really weird. They sounded less like talking monsters and more like two drunk guys at a bar. And, like, what was wrong with their voices? I have no idea. But yeah, anyway, moving on. Godzilla vs. Megalon. Another good film. It's basically Godzilla fighting a grasshopper or a beetle or whatever you want to call them with drills for hands. How cool is that? And Godzilla has to team up with a human robot named Jet Jaguar to fight Megalon and Gigan, who makes a return in this movie. But yeah, that was pretty awesome in my opinion. Godzilla vs. Megalon is a lot of fun and I would recommend it. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the original. I would have to say it's great because this is one of the best Mechagodzilla designs of all time. You can tell this Mechagodzilla is evil. It's controlled by aliens and my god. All the things he can do, he's got finger missiles, toe missiles, eye lasers, nose missiles. He's got it all. And that's why I love Mechagodzilla. And like the way they set him up, they made it seem like it was Godzilla who was going on a rampage and not Mechagodzilla. And then when the real Godzilla shows up, it's like, wow, that wasn't Godzilla the entire time? But you probably could tell because the roar sounded strange, you know? Yeah, that's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. That's why I consider it great. Terror of Mechagodzilla. Now, before you say, oh, this is the same movie, isn't it? No, it's actually a direct sequel to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, because it introduces the monster named Titanosaurus, which is a cool concept. He kind of has an annoying cackle, but apart from that, he's a pretty cool looking monster. Not as good as Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, but I would definitely make it good. At least they made it right by having Mechagodzilla be upgraded, so when Godzilla ripped his head off, he could still function, you know? That was an improvement from the first one, you know? One of the improvements, anyway. And the stakes are higher here because now Godzilla's up against two monsters with no allies. That's why it's fun. And it's also the final movie in the Showa era. And it was like a proper send-off where Godzilla would be taking a 10-year break or something. 9-10-year break. But yeah, that was a proper send-off. Up next we have The Return of Godzilla, the Japanese version. It was okay. Not as good as the first movie. Not as good as the original, but it was still kind of fun. And they made Godzilla the bad guy again. And I hate how they basically retconned everything that happened in the first movie. Like, everything that happened in the previous sequels. It still takes place 30 years after the events of the first movie, but it ignores the events of the other movies, which kinda sucks in a way. Next up, we have the American version, aka Godzilla 1985. Also okay. The scenes with Raymond Burr kind of made it an improvement, but I don't know. I still didn't really enjoy it as much as I did the original. Up next, we have Godzilla vs. Biollante. Now, this movie is strange, but fun. I would have to say it's good. Now, Godzilla fighting a giant rose might seem weird on paper, but it actually turned out really good because Biollante is a very interesting looking monster. Fun fact, Biollante was actually the winner of a contest that Toho put up for people who have ideas for monsters that would fight Godzilla. And Biollante won, so there you go. Whoever created Biollante, pat yourself on the back, because you deserve it. But yeah, anyway, Godzilla vs. Biollante was a good movie, in my opinion. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Really good movie. It's finally, we get a movie with Godzilla and Ghidorah by themselves. No other monsters interfering or anything like that. Just two of Toho's most powerful monsters duking it out. It basically talks about Godzilla's origin. He used to be a dinosaur called Godzilla S.O.S, and basically these people travel back in time to get rid of Godzilla S.O.S and replace him with their own monsters called Dorats. Over time, the Dorats evolved into King Ghidorah, and then Ghidorah went on a rampage in Japan. And now the only thing that can stop Ghidorah is Godzilla, but unfortunately he doesn't exist anymore. But luck just so has it, out of nowhere, a new Godzilla shows up from a nuclear sub. So the good news is, Godzilla's back, and the bad news is, Godzilla's back. So the two fight, and Godzilla absolutely annihilates Ghidorah. But wait, it's not over yet. A few minutes later, Ghidorah comes back as a mech. He is now Mechagodzilla. Probably one of my favorite monsters to date. If you thought Mechagodzilla was awesome, Mechagodzilla is even more awesome. Yeah, the movie's a lot of fun. That's why I say the movie's great. Godzilla vs. Mothra, the 1992 remake. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great either. I would have to say it was okay. I mean, I liked the introduction of Batra, but other than that, I don't know. I never really liked Mothra that much. And Mothra didn't really change at all since 1964 when she was first introduced in the Godzilla franchise, or earlier if you watched Mothra. I've never watched Mothra, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, my opinion on Godzilla vs. Mothra remake, it's fine. Nothing too special, but it's fine. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Even though it's the third movie featuring Mechagodzilla, but this is the Heisei era, not the Millennium era. Or the Showa era, sorry. This was also a great movie because Mechagodzilla, even though he looks more modern and doesn't look as great as the original Mechagodzilla, is probably more powerful than the original Mechagodzilla. Like, not only is he bigger, but he also has a lot more moves, and he's also very devastating. And he almost killed Godzilla in that movie, so yeah, Rodan had to step in and sacrifice himself to save Godzilla, so I don't know, that's pretty epic. That's why it's a great movie. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. Now, I don't know, this movie was kind of entertaining, kind of boring. I would have to say it's good, because I don't know, it's like Space Godzilla isn't really that creative in my opinion. He's just a mutated version of Godzilla, that's all it is. And Space Godzilla is a very generic name. I probably would have went with something like Cosmic Godzilla or Intergalactic Godzilla or something cool like that, you know? And, I mean, he's very powerful and everything. Probably one of Godzilla's most powerful monsters to date. Only losing to one monster, which I'll get to in a minute. But, yeah, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, not the best movie, but not the worst either. And finally, one of my favorite movies to date, Godzilla vs. Destoroyah! It's definitely going in godly, because it's a really good movie, and in celebrating the 40th anniversary of Godzilla, yes, 40 years have passed since the original Godzilla, and my god, what a send-off. They basically kill off Godzilla through this nuclear overload. You know, Godzilla is at the max level. He's reached critical mass, and he's basically dying, and the ending is pretty sad, because they have to melt Godzilla, and Godzilla doesn't even end up defeating Destoroyah. It's the military that ends up beating him. And overall, the movie is just very sad, in my opinion. And Destoroyah is one of the greatest monsters out there. He's probably one of Godzilla's strongest foes to date. If Destoroyah existed in real life, then expect the end of the world, because it's just a terrifying monster, and it was a proper send-off. Up next, we have the 1998 Godzilla, aka the monster that looked nothing like Godzilla, and looked more like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. I would have to say this movie was pretty bad, because Yeah, it looked nothing like Godzilla for one. Godzilla was able to be killed by the military, and it was just an overall terrible movie. And the movie always rained. There was never a sunny day. The rain was just relentless in that movie. And yeah, that's why I didn't really care for that movie that much. That's why it's in bad. Godzilla 2000, Japan's answer to the 1998 Godzilla. I would have to say this movie's okay. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. It introduces another monster that looks like a spaceship at first and doesn't really do anything, but once it transforms into Orga, it's basically very epic. And it's a monster that tries to absorb Godzilla's DNA to turn into a mutant Godzilla, but it doesn't end up working out for Orga, so yeah, there's that. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. I would say this was a good movie, because a prehistoric mutant dragonfly, who doesn't want to see that? Well, I mean, unless you're afraid of insects, but... or arachnids, or this is probably more of an arachnid than an insect, but I don't know. I'm no biologist or anything, so... yeah, I'm more into dinosaurs than insects, so yeah. But yeah, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus was a lot of fun, and Megaguirus is probably one of his quickest foes. Because when she flies, she's like Sonic the Hedgehog. Super fast. Then we've got Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, giant monsters all-out attack. AKA GMK, because the title was way too long. It's a very unique concept, in my opinion, where Ghidorah and Godzilla's roles are switched. It's Ghidorah who's the good guy, and Godzilla who's the bad guy. So it was a pretty unique concept, and probably one of the scariest Godzillas out there, because he's got the white eyes, he looks more like the original Godzilla. It's actually supposed to be the ghost of Godzilla, but you know, I don't know. Even though the title is way too long, it's still a great movie. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Now this movie was still good, though it wasn't as good as the other movies. I would have to put it under good. Because, you know, I mean, Mechagodzilla was really cool design in this one. They basically made it, like, from bones of the old Godzilla. And basically, it's the new Godzilla versus the old Godzilla. And Mechagodzilla even realizes that it was Godzilla at one point, and it goes on a rampage at some point, you know? It was just really fun. It was a fun movie. The one issue I had with the movie, they don't refer to Godzilla as... they don't refer to Mechagodzilla as, you know, Mechagodzilla. They constantly refer to him as Kiryu, or however you say his name. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Tokyo S.O.S. Not only is Mechagodzilla back, but Mothra's also back with a redesign. It was about time she got a redesign. Why she didn't get one in Heisei, I have no idea, but she gets one here in Millennium. But overall, this movie was okay. I would say S tier. No, sorry, okay, because, you know, it wasn't the greatest movie, but it wasn't the worst movie out there. Godzilla Final Wars. Now, this was the movie that was supposed to end all movies. I said that about Destroy All Monsters, and here we are, but Final Wars was epic. I would say it's great, because it can get a little wild at times, especially with the human characters, but the monster action was very intense. You had Godzilla going up against the American 1998 Zilla, and Godzilla just absolutely annihilates him. In fact, he absolutely annihilates almost every monster. The only monster he had trouble with was a modified version of Gigan and the final boss, Kaiser Ghidorah. Those were the only monsters he had trouble with, or Monster X, which was revealed to be a Ghidorah, so it was a proper send-off for Godzilla, and we wouldn't see him for another decade. Saying that, America decided to make another movie called Godzilla in 2014. The movie was alright. The biggest issue I had with the movie was the fight scenes mostly took place at night when you couldn't really see anything, and it focused very heavily on the human characters, and the human characters got very annoying, and it would get even worse as time goes on. And the Muto looked cool, I guess, but other than that, the movie was kind of meh. Then 2 years later, Japan made the answer to this movie, Shin Godzilla, which is a great movie. Once again, Godzilla's a bad guy, and he has one of the most unique designs in the entire franchise. Making him like this zombie-type monster was like a really nice touch. And giving him like a laser beam on its tail, and its mouth, and its back even. Very awesome, you know? Probably one of the most unique Godzillas I've ever seen. Up next, we have the Godzilla anime trilogy. Oh, and speaking of anime, I won't be including Singular Point because that's a series, and I won't be including any other series. It's just the movies, the Godzilla movies, and that's it. But yeah, anyway, we got Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. It was a pretty good movie. I'd say it's a good movie. And it introduces us to the largest Godzilla to date. Godzilla Earth is about 900 feet tall. And I love how it takes place 20,000 years in the future. It's pretty awesome. I mean, the characters get annoying at times, but other than that, it's still a great movie. Up next, we have Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, which basically introduces Mechagodzilla. Well, sort of. It's actually Mechagodzilla City. In my opinion, it wasn't as good. I would say it's okay, because, you know, I would have preferred it to just be a monster rather than a city, and have Godzilla fight Mechagodzilla City. Up next, we have Godzilla Planet Eater, the final movie in the anime trilogy. And it kind of blewed. Okay, because it wasn't really a proper send-off, and Ghidorah in that movie was kind of weird. I hate how he was like a serpent instead of a snake. And there was too much religion involved in these anime trilogies. Yeah, too much religion. And the movies were just, you know, I don't know, pretty boring in my opinion. And last but not least, we've got 2 more American Godzilla movies. And then that'll be the whole tier list done. First, we have Godzilla King of the Monsters, which in my opinion is kind of an improvement from the 2014 Godzilla. I'd have to say it's good. King Ghidorah in that movie is a huge improvement from Planet Eater. He looked more like an actual dragon and is probably one of my favorite Ghidorahs to date. And I love how the final battle took place in Boston, Massachusetts. In my opinion, it's an underrated city. You know, instead of the usual New York or California or Canada. You know, somewhere generic like that. I love how the final battle took place in Boston, Massachusetts. That was a nice touch. Fenway Park, more specifically. And finally, Godzilla vs. Kong, the remake. This movie was pretty good. It was a lot of fun. I'd have to say great, because it showed Godzilla and Kong duking it out in a more even fight, and basically having the 2 monsters team up to fight Mechagodzilla in the end. Which in my opinion is a great looking Mechagodzilla, and this Mechagodzilla is pretty dangerous. More so than the 1993 Godzilla in my opinion. But yeah, and that's my tier list for the Godzilla movies. If you have a different opinion on what the tier list should be, let me know in the comments down below. And that's gonna have to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like. It would really help out a ton. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. So long!